Hi guys, hi YouTubers, hi fellas. In this webinar, ACS 05, we're going to be talking about remote working and remote learning. At the end of the video, there are going to be two webinars for two perfect solutions, both for corporates and education. Of course, these solutions can be offered in other sectors as well, but they are mainly primarily focused in the corporate as well as the educational sector. So, first of all, what is remote working and remote learning? Well, they're very similar, but you do have the advantages and disadvantages, and they do differ. So let's first of all talk about remote working. Remote working has been around now for quite a while, but when COVID hit, businesses had to change quite rapidly and to adapt to having staff work remotely, hence remote working. And that has its advantages and its disadvantages. So the advantages are staff stayed at home, they were protecting people, because obviously when COVID was quite bad. The disadvantages are solutions may need to be implemented rapidly. Solutions may not be fully tested in advance. Company plans and businesses may need to bring forward plans that you've got in the future quite rapidly. Solutions will need to be brought in, installed, configured and tested quite rapidly. Some companies may not be prepared for that. Some companies may allow remote working, some companies may not. For example, in a bank, they are usually locked down. But of course, over lockdown, there were certain sectors and certain key people that had to actually go into work and work. But we're not focused on that, we're focused on the remote working, the remote education as well, and the remote learning. So you're looking at solutions that will adhere to company policies. You're looking at solutions that are cheap or reasonably priced, that can adhere to company policies, solutions that are easy to implement, easy to install and configure, a solution that is very user friendly and user intuitive. Basically, it says what it does. And it's easy for the staff because they don't need to go in. They will just need to log on with their username and password, and it'll be like magic to them. What they see at work is what they would see at home. The downside is, if the internet's slow, it may cause a bit of an issue with the remote connection and the connection dropping out. But obviously, you will be advised by your administrators or network people in advance that you would recommend that you're connected by Ethernet cable or an RJ45 cable, or if your wireless is over, say, 10 megabits, for example, it may be strong enough. So, solutions, there are a lot of solutions out there that offer a broad spectrum of services. But personally, the solutions that we offer absolutely cyber services, LNITS, especially on the educational sector side, are for the corporate, it's Net Support Manager, and for the education, it's Classroom.cloud, to beg your pardon. So Net Support Manager is remote control management software. So say, for example, a member of staff was having a corporate member of staff was having an issue. You could remotely connect to machine, view, control, share the mouse and keyboard, remote registry, remote command prompt, take print screens, record, send files, distribute files, receive files, record the session. So if someone says something's happened, you obviously have to proof otherwise. You can configure it in a way that members of staff had to tick a box that they were aware that you're connecting. You can configure it in a way that they were aware that the session's going to be recording and they have to press yes. It can be configured in a way that members of staff are prompted a PIN on the screen, and they have to give that PIN to the administrator so he can connect to the computer, adding a form of two-factor authentication so you can confirm and make sure who that person is. Like, for example, on Amazon, sometimes where you log in, after you put your password in, if you've got two-factor authentication, it'll say enter your 6-digit one-time passcode. So there are a lot of settings within that support manager, but the few that I just listed down are some of the main key features. With regard to security, it uses two-factor authentication. It uses AES 256-bit encryption. You could have it linked with Active Directory. You can configure templates. So there's one master profile for, say, the super administrator, for example, and then administrators under that person will have, let's say, a profile called Administrator 1. And anyone that's in that Administrator 1 profile, say user 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 5 users are under the Administrator 1 profile, and they can use the product, but they will only have access to key features. For example, they may be able to connect to the computer, but only be able to show the keyboard and mouse, not lock the mouse. They may not be able to send and retrieve files. They may be able to just do an inventory report of the machine. With regard to the webinar that we included at the end, it goes through all the features, but I'm just listing a few. But obviously at the end it'll go a lot more in detail about the solution, why it's needed. With regard to the educational sector, we're working for the children. There's a solution called Classroom.cloud, and that basically is a web version of Net Support Skill. Net Support Skill is an on-premise remote control classroom management software where the teacher can basically do similar to Net Support Manager, except it's more tailored to classrooms. Like, she can limit printing, she can limit keyboard and mouse input and to get the children taught to the front. She can share a screen to math students. She can listen into the audio. She can send a quiz to check how many children got the test right in the class. She can, on top of that, block and allow websites. She can create a word bank. So, for example, there's an allowed word list and there's an appropriate word list. Say, for example, good words, sport, physical education, football, cricket, bad word list, games, computer viruses, installers, MSI, for example. If a student went on and put MSI, it would come up and it would take a picture of that student's screen. With regard to Classroom.cloud, depending on how the administrators run it, they, I presume, would give the student a networkable tablet, because obviously you're not going to want to put out your personal machine. Obviously, every school has different policies, and they may make it that way. It just depends on what the parents have agreed with the school. So with Classroom.cloud, you can watch student screens, you can send messages, block internet, allow internet websites, you can show a student screen, you can create a virtual whiteboard and say, go around the classroom and say, name the planets, or point to the planets, and Josh could write his name, just put J for an initial, and point, this is Jupiter, and Jack could point to this is Mars, and Tim could point to this is Earth, and Macy could point to that's the sun, for example. So then that way, it's intuitive in the way that it's getting all the children to learn at the same time. The solution is managed by the Net Support Solutions team, whereas it's you are not maintaining it as an administrator. You have access as an administrator to an admin account, and as teachers you have access to a teacher setup. On top of that, in future updates, it will be included to link with Active Directory. But as of now, I believe it is just tagged by the machine name. On top of that, On top of that, guys, Classroom.cloud is easy breezy, it's low cost, it's cloud-based classroom management, teaching, and online safety platform for skills. That is very important. Tie in with e-safety. Our teaching tools make it easy to lead learning in classrooms with remote learners, plus the simple to maintain tools. Some of the key features are it's certified for installation and deployment on Windows 11 SE. On top of that, the solution is easy to use, easy to manage, low cost. So what does Classroom.cloud do? So we've just talked a couple about the features, a couple of the features that I personally think are the most important. It's the ideal cloud platform for effective classroom management and teaching, whether everyone is together in the classroom or learning remotely at home, with no swapping between solutions for the different scenarios. In a great way, it's a great way to provide continuity for students and teachers too. Classroom.cloud was recently awarded a certificate of pedagogical quality by the Education Alliance, Finland. You can read that full article on classroom.cloud.com. On top of that, real-time instructions. Show your screen, audio to help explain lessons, activities, plus interact with the classroom. Give every student a voice with chat, messaging tools, launch websites and applications directly on students' devices to help save time, and even remote control the screen. Assess and support. Use surveys to quickly gain an insight into everyone's topic of understanding and assign rewards to your students throughout the lesson, plus deliver support quickly and easily when students ask via the help desk request tool. Manage online behaviour. Need your students' attention? Simply lock the screen. Plus, help them stay on task easily, monitoring what to type in, who they're collaborating with, controlling the application they're using, and the websites that they're visiting. Stay safe. Do you know Online Safety Toolkit keeps your online environment safe and secure at all times by monitoring concerning activity, identifying students at risk, spotting concerning trends. It's a powerful tool. Its powerful tools are perfect for helping inform you online safety strategy policies and meet the latest requirements. It integrates with Google Classroom, integrates with ClassLink, integrates with Microsoft School Data Sync, ultra-fast performance and scalability, multi-platform support, evidence of impact, which you read a full educational alliance report which I mentioned above. What are the benefits of Classroom.cloud? Classroom.cloud has been developed with valuable input from teachers, and the results it is what it is so simple to use, with clear intuitive control, with the ability to interact with virtual classrooms in real time in just a few clicks. Cloud-based teaching and learning has never been easier. Easy for teachers. The easiest classroom tool you'll ever use, Classroom.cloud lets you monitor, control, collaborate with your students to maintain their learning continuity in a class or remotely, keeping them on target for success. Easy for technicians. Easy to set up, configure, manage, and use Classroom.cloud virtually takes care of itself. Integrated directly with your infrastructure, you can easily deploy in minutes and manage teachers and students' devices centrally, saving you a bunch of time. It is easy for online safety and safeguarding the staff. And on top of that, It is also easy for districts and skill trusts. With clever use of contextual intelligence and by working with educators, young people, and leading charities, this is the only online solution that you will need for remote learning in a classroom environment. It's low cost, scalable, with clear central configuration and management. Classroom.cloud is the ideal solution for districts, trusts, and a one setup. The IT team involvement minimal, and for teachers, it's using the intuitive interface is a breeze. With regard to safeguarding, with its clever use of its contextual intellectual behaviour by working with the educators and young people and leading charities, the online safety toolkit helps you identify, support and protect the students at all times, no matter where they are. On the website, you can get a brochure, read reviews, see screenshots, evidence of the impact of the report. Pathological approach, 94%. Learning engagement is 4 out of 5, and learning goals is met by 90% of the students. There are some great reviews on the website, and you can also take a closer look, which I'm going to include at the end of this video. It's part 2. So video 1 is the view of Net Support Manager, and video 2 will be Classroom.cloud. What I forgot to mention is that with Net Support Manager, besides integrated with AD, you can also set it where I was talking about having that master profile and the limit profile underneath what the administrators or departments would have access to. You could also configure it so, say there was an authorized access, the person would have to log on either with the username and password or the set password depending on how you've configured it. But the Net Support Manager and Classroom.cloud are perfect solutions, yet again, made by the Net Support team that are worldwide known in over 120 countries. Come to Absolute Cyber Services, who are a leading partner in the educational and cyber services space. I would be more than happy to assist you with your education request or your corporate request. If you would like further information, you can reach us on the website link below. If you would like a webinar of either Net Support Manager or Classroom.cloud, please let us know, and I or one of the team will get back to you. I'll be more than happy to assist you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Welcome to our brief feature tour of NetSupport Manager multi-platform PC remote control. NetSupport Manager supports remote control from Windows, Mac, Android and iOS devices to any Windows, Mac or Linux computer across the enterprise. This tour will provide an overview of the main Windows control platform and all of the main functionality included within NetSupport Manager. So here we have the main control interface, and you'll see it's broken down into a number of key areas. Along the top we have our main toolbar with access to all of the main features within NetSupport Manager. Directly below we have our recent history bar. Down the left hand side we have all of our tree and hierarchical views, as well as one-click access to key supporting features such as our help requests, vPro management and so on. And on the right hand side we have our icon view of all computers that have been discovered or grouped within the company hierarchy. We're going to take a few moments just to work our way through some of the key navigation areas and then use an example to highlight some of the high-level features available within NetSupport. So let's have a look at the main hierarchical view and see how we can group, analyze, and most importantly of all, locate computers across our enterprise. So let's take a look at the main features within the product, starting with our ability to browse, discover and group our computers once they've been identified within our enterprise. As you can see at the top here, we currently are on our All Computers marker, and we have 58 computers that have been discovered and are currently known on our system. Each of those computers is represented by an icon on the right hand side. Now within NetSport we can create our own groups using the group menu at the top that allows us to create our own subfolders. In this case demo kit, regional PCs, and below that you can see I've created my own groups where I'm locating machines based on their location. We also include within NetSport Manager an auto group feature. That basically means that whenever we browse, discover and connect to any specific PC or device, we'll automatically identify the operating system and group the computer accordingly, as we can see in the view here, Windows 8, Windows 7 and so on. Again, the same for Linux or Apple Mac computers. The same for client versions, that allows us to identify if we have any older versions of NetSport Manager on the network. The new enclosure type that allows us to identify which machines are desktops, towers, all-in-ones and so on. A really useful feature moving forward when we're managing tablets and virtualized PCs and more. And again, also another new feature within NetSport Manager, our client location feature. In version 12 and on, NetSport Manager is able to resolve the approximate location of each remote PC using its public address information, and this allows us to identify the town, city, state and country of each computer, and it allows us to display firstly a high level flag for each PC, and below that actual details and grouping based on cities around the world. A really handy feature if you're managing a number of computers in different regional offices. Now this is all well and good and we have all these PCs identified on the system, but first and foremost we need a way of actually locating and discovering computers initially. So the browse feature allows us to browse, as the name suggests, and search for computers across our network. Now by default, the browse feature will allow us to discover computers on the same subnet as ourselves. When we come on later in the product to look at the configuration options, we can add ranges of subnets to allow us to browse across the full enterprise. And we also have additional functionality via our gateway for connecting and discovering computers on remote locations. Our Active tab simply allows us to identify quickly all those computers we're currently connected to, something we'll see shortly. Help Requests allows us to identify any computers that are requesting assistance from across the enterprise. vPro Management is exactly as it suggests, the ability to remotely manage our vPro enabled devices. Internet Gateways are our capability to create a unique NetSport gateway in different locations that allows us to browse and discover computers in remote locations over HTTP. Now NetSport Manager first and foremost is a WAN-based solution allowing you to discover computers over TCP/IP or IPX or NetBIOS for legacy implementations. But there are of course occasions where remote sites, the only means of connectivity is over the internet, and therefore our unique gateway component that's available as standard in the product allows us to access computers via HTTP that can be in remote and, most importantly, secure locations around the internet. Finally, we also have an automation mode that allows us to create automated scripts and tasks to perform routine actions on a frequent time schedule basis. Now let's jump back to the top of the tree, and as you see we've got our all computers view, and the best way sometimes to highlight functionality in the product is to actually go through the process. Now I know these machines are all here and I want to connect to some computers and do something. You'll see as I'm tooltipping over each PC, it's providing me with some additional information. The name of the computer, the current logged on user, the IP address in this case, the last time I connected to it, the operating system, the location, and the form factor, the case type of the particular PC. It's a desktop computer. And I can do this for each of the computers that I want to connect to. Now if I want to connect to an existing PC, I can first and foremost simply select the computer, like so, and I can choose the connect menu at the top to perform a simple connect. I could also right click and connect on the PC, or if it's a computer that I've used recently, I can select it from my recent list, and you'll see very conveniently my recent list gives me quick access to most of the first level functionality I'm likely to use on a daily basis. So again I have my summary of the PC, but now I have a connect button, a quick view button, file transfer button, registry editor, inventory creator, remote command prompt, chat and message. All the key functions that we'd want to use on a day-to-day basis. So let's just identify that machine and click connect. And as you'll see, the computer is now connected, and then we know it's connected because we now have a green highlight within the screen to identify it. You'll also notice that to match this, on our active section, we now have one computer that is currently active. So now we have one PC connected, although we could jump and perform remote control on that straight away. Let's pick a few more. In this case, let's select a block of computers here, and let's right click and connect on all of them as well. And as you'll see instantly, we now have a selection of computers that we're now able to remote control. Okay, so now we have a few PCs selected and connected to. Let's jump to our active tab, and as you can see, we've got now a nice real-time thumbnail for each PC. Now we also have the luxury when we look at a PC to mouse over and see a detailed high-resolution version of each PC, or we can come to our display menu here on the right-hand side, and you'll see within this we can actually control the size of the thumbnails that are being displayed on the screen. You'll also notice, looking at the badges at the bottom of the screen in this zone here, that we can also control what is displayed alongside our recent history. In this case, operating system, but we could also show case type and location, and we also have the ability to overlay that with our wireless and battery information for mobile, tablets, laptops and so on. One you can see being overlaid just here. So let's make our thumbnails a little bit larger. So here's our computers that we're managing over the network. And obviously one of the key strengths of NetSport Manager is its one-to-many capabilities, the ability to group and manage multiple systems in real time. You'll also notice below each thumbnail we also have quick access to our main features, our remote control, our file transfer, registry, inventory, command prompt and chat features as well. So at all times, no matter where you are in the product, there are a number of different ways you can quickly access the key features that you actually want to utilize. Now once we've got our machines, this is a great monitoring solution, but obviously remote control, remote access technology is first and foremost about the ability to jump on a remote machine and provide support, assistance or access resources that are important to you on that remote machine. So with that in mind, the next step within NetSport Manager is for us to select a PC and actually perform our one-to-one remote control. So let's select a couple of devices and do a one-to-one remote control. There's a PC here, we can right click and simply select view, and as you can see we've jumped straight to their screen. So we can, for example, set our color depth information here down to 256 if we're working over a mobile connection and we don't need quite the same level of exact color recognition being sent through. We can change our view modes here to either be share, where both parties have access to the mouse and keyboard, watch mode, where we're utilizing the tool simply as a remote monitoring solution, or control mode, where we're actually hands-on with a remote device and we're preventing the remote user interacting at the same time. Perfect if we're working on maintenance tasks on a server, for example, and we don't want somebody to walk up to the computer and make any other changes. We can change to our full screen mode that allows us to display one-to-one, and as you probably noticed at this point here, we're running in scale to fit mode, which basically means that we can adjust the size of this view window at any time and everything is proportionally adjusted to suit. Staple of our remote management product is the ability to capture and timestamp a screenshot to keep a record of any activities that have been undertaken. We have our ability to capture a remote hardware and software inventory, which we'll cover in due course, perform a file transfer, chat, launch applications, and the launch application feature can be extremely powerful within NetSport Manager, as it means we can connect to multiple devices and remotely initiate a setup file or a service or an update without having to visit each PC and run the command locally for each machine. Our clipboard, as it suggests, simply allows us to select text or details on one machine, copy it to our clipboard, and then access that clipboard and paste back locally to our PC, or of course the complete opposite. Our audio allows us to have two-way communication with the remote user whilst performing remote control, turn the audio off, talk only, listen only, or of course adjust our settings to suit our own requirements. In terms of remote management, we have a quick logout option, quick reboot, blank the screen if we're performing something on our remote control that is particularly sensitive or confidential, the ability to annotate our screen, which allows us to highlight areas of the screen of particular interest to draw the user's attention, and we have the ability to toggle between different modes of remote control, from intercepting the video calls to simply scraping the screen information that's presented in front of us. So lots of different features, all built around the idea of providing the most powerful, high performance but secure remote control available on the market. Now let's jump, and we'll jump across to another PC here, and we'll view this PC as well. In the case of this PC, we've got a nice big high resolution device that we're going to just scale down a little bit so we can see it. And as you can see, in the case of this computer here, we're remote controlling a Windows 8.1 device. And as we said, we have our scale to fit options, our screenshot options, and much more. And we're able to monitor exactly in real time any activity that the user is performing. Good. Now, in addition to those features, we talked about some of the supporting features, and we can access a high level, the top features below each computer, or by right-clicking and accessing our menu here, or finally we have key features grouped together. So let's work our way through some of the selected items. Under Actions, if we select a PC first of all, and then select Actions, you'll see we have the ability to access a remote command prompt. Simply click, and here's our remote command prompt, and we're now in a situation where we can remotely work on the PC as if we were sat in front of it. And again, this allows us to avoid the need for having an actual remote control session to a local command prompt on the remote PC. This is a quick and easy way for system managers to access or find out key information. Again, from our Actions menu, we also have a registry option. And if we open the registry, as you can see, we have access to all of the key, H key, current user, software, and so on. All of the key registry information that might be needed for remote diagnostic and management of computers. Again, back to our Actions menu, and we have our inventory feature, and you'll see for our inventory information it's broken down, as you'd expect, into a number of key areas. Our starting point is to provide us with an overview of the system, showing us our operating system, service pack, physical memory, what domain we're a member of, and so on and so on. We then have subsections which allow us to give detailed information about the motherboard, the network adapter, CPU, the video adapter, storage for current device, any additional supported storage devices, as well as any multimedia, miscellaneous, additional printers, and so on and so on. Now, as well as the hardware information, we're also able to produce a summary of all the software that is installed on the remote machine, including the current version number, which again allows us to actually analyze and provide remote support information. We're also able to provide and view a full list of all hotfixes that have been installed on the remote computer, with quick links to the Microsoft reference points, so we can see what has and hasn't been installed on the PC, and of course that's always a good starting point for problem resolution. We can also see what's running on a PC at any time, whether it be applications and so on, and we can select those and we can remotely close them as well. It allows us to see what's happening in background. We can also see what processes are running on the computer, and again, for each process we can select, and if appropriate we can export a summary of that or kill that process. And finally, we have a full analysis of all services that are on the PC, and I'm just expanding these to make them slightly more visual to you, but again, we can select particular services, and security permitting, we have the ability to interact, stop, pause, restart any of those particular services. So all of these elements group together to provide us with a very quick and effective way of remotely managing and discovering the key information about a remote PC. In version 12 and onwards, this hardware inventory functionality has also been included within the companion mobile apps for both iOS and Android smartphones and tablet computers as well. So let's close that one down. Let's go back to our list of actions, and you'll see we have the ability to chat with a computer. Chat is fairly straightforward. We can specify a topic, test topic. We can choose whether members can decline to join, whether they can leave the chat, and so on. We can obviously select multiple members to join the topic, and then if so, we simply start a chat session that allows us to talk to our remote user, and our user can respond accordingly. We can invite other members, and if required, we can even create a small virtual whiteboard to share and explain certain topics. Moving on, we also have the ability to send a message. Well, of course, Chat is quite effective when we're talking with one or a small group of people, but message is a quick and simple way for us to alert all users within a department or across the entire enterprise if there are particular topics we need to draw their attention to. So perhaps from a tech support point of view, we want to send a message to all staff making them aware we know the mail server is down, don't call us, we're currently dealing with the matter. And send message simply allows us to send to all available NetSupport clients across the network, all connected clients, or just those that we've currently selected. And we can send a message which is either on screen until acknowledged, or we can add a time value before the message is automatically closed. Again, a handy supporting tool. And below that we have our launch applications, which, as we discussed when we looked at the one-to-one remote control, simply allows us to actually remotely launch an application, either an executable or from a save list, to any number of computers, and also highlight and view the results to make sure that that's actually being applied to each computer. Okay, following on from our actions menu, we have the desktop menu, and the starting point is our remote control option, the ability to view a client, which we've already seen. Below that we have a show feature, and the show feature is the reverse of remote control, simply that we can select our computer screen and we can show it to any number of remote client PCs. So in this case, to all the members that we're currently connected to, and we're able to show them, create a replay file, so in fact create a video recording of our presentation, set any hotkeys, enable audio support, and automatically we now have within NetSupport a presentation tool that allows us to deliver effective real-time training to staff within our enterprise. We also have a scan mode which allows us to select a small number of computers and view those at a different interval, so we can cycle through our remote control process looking at a particular number of computers for 10 seconds, 20 seconds or whatever. Of course we have the luxury within NetSupport of our wonderful monitor mode which allows us to see all our thumbnails, but if we need to see much larger thumbnails but all computers in turn, then scan provides a useful supporting tool. We have our record and playback, and one of the key features within NetSupport to support our effective remote control is the ability that we can actually record each remote control session, save that away to a file, edit that file, and then subsequently use it for playback, either directly by the end user from their PC, or from a technician's point of view, we can build up a library of key topics and solutions and then use that playback file to deliver effective training to our end users. Again, all these features are included as standard within NetSupport Manager. Our Manage menu simply gives us quick access to our key management features, namely the ability to reboot a selected computer, log in or log out of one or a number of selected computers remotely, send Control-Delete for quick access to remote logins or Task Manager, for example, as well as, perhaps the most important ones, the ability to remotely power on and power off remote computers. A really handy feature, and again, it extends the capabilities of NetSupport significantly. Next up we have our file transfer menu, and you'll see we've got 3 different types of file transfer. Not intended to be too confusing, but let's work through them one by one. So first and foremost is file transfer, the kind of functionality we'd expect to see in most reasonable remote control solutions. So we have our desktop computer and we have our remote computer, and as you'd expect we have a hierarchy for each one and the ability to select files and simply select an item. Once we see an item that we want, we can select it, copy it. We've got some pictures here, and we can move and copy as you'd expect. Right click, edit, rename, delete, and so on. Very much the foundation of file transfer as you would expect in any product. What we can also do within NetSupport is utilize file distribution. So let's actually select a few computers here in our group, and now when we do file distribution, you'll see that we're actually able to do the same thing, but now we've got a selection of computers at the bottom of the screen, like so. So with file distribution, I'm able to select a folder, and I'm able to either drag and drop that directly to those remote computers. But before we do that, we'll say no. We want to be able to set the destination on the remote location. So here we can actually use our set destination folder, and we can choose, for example, to send that information straight to the documents folder on remote PC. Once we do that, we can lock that in place, and now we can drag and drop our folder to each remote computer. So file distribution provides us with a very flexible tool for delivering system updates or documents to multiple users across the enterprise in a single action. If you consider file distribution and at the same time consider the ability within NetSupport Manager to remotely launch an application, you will see that the two elements together provide a technician with a very powerful remote update tool as well. Finally, we have our file manager option, which is simply a local file management and browsing tool. We provide it within NetSupport Manager simply to ensure that if a technician is working within the product, they don't need to leave it to access local file resources. Along the rest of this menu, we have our quick access to our view client, inventory, show features, as well as some properties and settings that we'll come onto. And all the information within this toolbar can be customized. You'll see here there are a range of additional features individually that we can select and we can drag across from here to the remote machine. Announce, for example, being an audible version of sending a message. Our quick view menu here we've used already by selecting a PC and having access to our summary information. It's telling us about the different operating systems, this being a Windows 8.1 machine. But we can toggle this to actually tell us the type of PC, so it's a all-in-one form factor versus these being desktops, and we can also change the location. These computers currently are all located in the United Kingdom. Again, a very simple way of quickly getting an update on what's available on our machines. We can also overlay for our mobile devices with battery and wireless details as well. So we have all of our computers across the enterprise, and as you can see, we can remotely connect to them, we can monitor one or multiple systems, we can show our screen to them for interactive training, we can record remote control sessions, we can interact both textually and with an audio stream over our remote control sessions, we can capture inventory information, we can remotely monitor services, processes, the registry, command prompt of remote machines. All of the tools are required to ensure that we can deliver effective remote management via any technology solution. The key, of course, is always going to come back to our ability to remotely locate and discover those computers. And we started our presentation off by utilizing the browse feature, where we're able to browse the network and discover all computers across our local network. We also have our connect option at the top here, which we're going to open, and you'll see we've got a range of connectivity tools. The first being the ability to quick connect to a machine based on its name or address. And you'll see we've got three toggles here. By default, we can quickly connect to a machine based on its IP address, or we can connect based on the actual logged on user for a remote PC we wish to connect, or we could toggle and connect by the PC name, PC123. So we have three different mechanisms for quickly connecting to a machine where we know their details. Also included within NetSupport Manager is our new Pin Connect feature. Now typically when we're browsing and discovering across the network, we might find hundreds or thousands of computers, and initially they'll be identified by their PC name. It's not always obvious which PC an end user is sat at, and regrettably in some cases the end user is not clear themselves what the name of their PC is. So Pin Connect is a new feature designed to deliver face-to-face customer service and support by allowing both parties to enter a unique PIN code, and in doing so automatically handshake and connect with NetSupport Manager. Now, as you'd expect, there's a central point, the new PIN server, that is provided as a free component with NetSupport Manager and runs alongside the NetSupport Gateway component. This PIN server simply ensures that only unique PIN codes are generated and stores against that PIN code for its lifespan, typically a few minutes, the details of one or other party, so that when the PIN code is entered by the end user, it will automatically connect back to the operator who generated the PIN code. To add additional flexibility, PIN codes can be requested and entered at either end of the connection, so end users can also generate a PIN code, pick up the phone, ring the tech support department and ask them to punch in a code in order to quickly jump onto their desktop and provide them with assistance or take a look at a problem that they're currently having. Now, within our Connect menu, enter a PIN and create a PIN are provided there. You'll also see on our main toolbar we have a PIN Connect feature. where we can either click on create pin and the server will display for us a code 12345, which we can then either telephone and speak to our end user, email, or we can automatically copy and paste into a messenger, or we can enter a pin if we've been given one, and when we select the enter pin, we're given a simple box to enter our pin code, and when we click connect, that will handshake and automatically connect us to the client PC that also is carrying the corresponding pin code. So the Pin Connect feature allows both ends of NetSport to be very, very effective in joining, very much more user-friendly than perhaps we've seen in previous versions where the remote client component was hidden away. I think it's important to highlight at this point that most people's perception of remote control tends to fall into two camps. Either the remote management tools that are pre-installed like NetSport Manager that historically have been largely invisible to the end user, and the browser-based customer focused remote control products where the end user has to initiate the activity. With the latest version of NetSport Manager, we provide both methods, both interfaces, to ensure that we can either provide our solution silently and seamlessly to unmanned computers across the enterprise, but also provide a clear and concise interface and communication to desktop users when they're using their PCs to also facilitate effective remote support and assistance. So we've looked at most of the main user-based features within NetSport Manager. We've had a look at our real-time thumbnails and our ability to change the information that's displayed on the screen, highlight individual computers, show their regional information with flag overlays, identify the operating system, even the enclosure type, whether they're a virtual PC or a rack-mounted system in real time, toggle our recent history so we can see what kinds of computers we're dealing with, access via vPro or by direct from help requests, management of remote computers, and much more. The next bit really is to have a quick overview on some of the configuration options that are available within the control, and then we can jump to the client side, the end user side machine, to talk about some of the settings and options that are available for your user base. So under our network option, we can configure our networking, and the first level is very much a case of identifying who my control is. So in this case, we've got a name against it, and we can add some descriptions and user ID information to make it more meaningful on our main control interface. We then have our connectivity options. So by default, we have our TCP connectivity, and you can see here that we've got what port we're communicating on, what subnets we want to browse for, and you can see here we can add in a range of subnets across the network so we can ensure we can browse and discover all computers. We can also enable broadcast, allowing us to send when we're performing a show to computers, or our one-to-many file distribution. We can broadcast over UDP to minimize the network traffic and maximize the performance that we send out. We also have support for a range of legacy platforms, our IPX and NetBIOS. We have HTTP support when we're communicating over an internet gateway. The details for our new PIN server, so we can specify the address of the PIN server and whether it's going to simply be the same details as our gateway machine. Again, we have legacy support for dial-up support, as well as advanced networking defaults, which typically you shouldn't need to use. And we have some first level security settings. Will we set a password on our control before it can be used? I'll be operating a security key with our deployment. The security key ensures that only our version of the NetSport Manager software will connect to the same matching version of all our users by means of them all carrying a unique security key. This prevents other staff downloading an eval copy and having any connectivity. We can prompt for additional information before we connect, so when you try and connect to my PC, tell me a bit more about you first. We can ensure that we use compression, and equally we can also enable different levels of encryption to further secure our connectivity. And on startup, we can also set some default activities. When I start my PC, connect to all computers within a defined group, browse for certain machines, start viewing, and much more. Those are really those initial, what are my scope of behavior and what kind of environment am I dealing with. We have a settings option within NetSport Manager that gives us a bit more granularity. So now, as well as our connectivity options, we also have our security settings, but we now extend more detail, so we can have our event logging, so we have a record of all activity that occurred when we performed our remote control, whether we're going to record automatically replay files each and every time we connect to a PC and store those, including audio, in a certain location, whether we're going to act as an administrator when we connect to remote machines. We have lots of configuration options for our remote control sessions. Are we going to go full screen? Are we going to scrape the screen rather than intercept the video? Are we going to blank the screen when we connect to it by default? What kind of cache size? What keyboard we're going to use? What fonting information? As you can see here, we can map to all different language keyboards if we're remotely supporting a Dutch or Japanese computer from afar. Whether we want to capture the printer information, so when we're remote controlling a PC in another office, we can hit print on that PC, capture the print output and redirect it back to our local computer. Audio settings, as well as all sorts of configuration options within the control interface to hide or display certain information to suit. And in addition, we can also restrict certain functionality that's available. And the important aspect of this is that our control can be profiled. In other words, when we jump into the control, it will prompt us for a password, and depending on who we are and the password we enter, different functionality can be presented to us. Now, as you'd expect, NetSport works both ways. We can control the functionality that's available based on the control, but we can also authenticate based on the end user PC. So depending on which PC you connect to, it will only allow certain features to be available to different technicians. Again, it's another way of ensuring that senior staff's computers can only be accessed by senior IT technicians, or perhaps more appropriately, that only you can access your office PC remotely rather than other staff. Again, we have our help requests and what to do when somebody requests help. Highlight it in our menu, play a message, a sound, and so on. Our file transfer settings and what our compression priorities are when we're actually performing it. vPro, specifying our vPro settings and how we access those. Default file locations for our configuration files, and this is where we store our list of known historical clients, groups, and so on that we've created. And if you're using NetSport Protect, our desktop security product, we also have an integration configuration page here. Now, I appreciate that's fairly whistle-stop, but the purpose of this presentation is to give you a flavour and an overview rather than take you through how to use each and every feature within the configuration. Okay, so let's have a look at the product from the end user's perspective, or as we refer to it, the client component. In the system tray, the user has a NetSport Manager client icon, and when they click on the icon, they're presented in version 12 and later with our new user information screen. The NetSport Manager screen here tells the end user some key information about their own computer, their computer name, their details, their address, and what operating system they're running. It also shows them their license details. On the right, they can either create a PIN or enter a PIN using our new PIN Connect feature from version 12 and onwards, if required to by a technician. And they also have quick access to view their own local inventory, request help, or access previous replay files that have been recorded for support or assistance to them. And they can have this display like so. They can pin it, minimize it, or even click on the icon here and have a minimized version that simply sits on their PC. And in many cases, simply knowing their current PC name and address information is sufficient information to ensure that they can communicate effectively with the tech department. If, however, somebody connects to their PC, you'll see that the status changes to green, and this allows them to see that they're now connected, who the connectee is, where they're from, and it gives them two key features: the ability to initiate a chat session with the person who's connected to their PC, or, where appropriate and security is permitting, simply disconnect the remote control session if they felt it wasn't appropriate. Now, of course, within NetSport Manager, we have all sorts of client authentication features, user acknowledgement, validation, and so on, which we'll come on to now by having a look at the client configurator component. Okay, from the NetSport Manager program group, we've opened the client configurator, and you'll see you're presented with two options: our basic config, which allows you to simply set things like the client name and the protocol that you're going to be communicating over, or the advanced option that presents all of the configuration information available to NetSupport. So for the purpose of this quick walkthrough, we'll jump to the advanced tab, and you'll see that we have a single profile. Now, the clue here is that we have one profile. Within the NetSport Manager, we can have multiple profiles that adjust and adapt the behavior of the client depending on who is connecting to it. So, for example, if this was the PC of the finance director, they may have a profile that says all key features are disabled when connected to by most technical staff, except one senior member of staff who can connect, but only when the finance director is logged off from their machine and a user acknowledgement is flagged, for example. Let's have a look at our master profile by selecting Edit, and we can go through some of the functionality that's available. Many of this we've already touched on from a control side, but we'll quickly whiz through the key bits which are most relevant. So again, we have a mirror from, as we saw on the control side, of our connectivity, specifying whether we're dealing with TCP, HTTP, setting up the address of our PIN server, and so on. Security is always key. We have a user validation. I'm only going to allow machines to connect to this machine that have a certain username and password. I'm going to authenticate my username and passwords with NT, or I'm going to authenticate with Active Directory so that only members of certain AD groups, so for example, administrators, are able to connect. If I choose my NT options, I can also enable smart card authentication, ensuring that when I remotely connect to this machine, I will have to have a matching smart card with credentials passed through to facilitate my membership. Once connect, my access privileges can be controlled, as you can see here, so I can ensure that file transfer or remote reboot or system management features are disabled when I'm connected to. User acknowledgement, a key feature for live remote control. When somebody tries to connect to this client PC, the user will be required to acknowledge the request. In other words, a box will pop up on the screen saying, user X wishes to connect to your PC, do you authorize? And have a yes/no option. But of course we need extra granularity, so when we enable that feature, we can override by saying we want user acknowledgement, except when there's nobody logged in on the PC, or except when connecting as the same logged on user as is on the PC at the moment, and whether we want to display some text to validate or explain the reason for my connection, and also a timeout. If I request the ability to connect to the PC and no one responds after 30 seconds, what should we do? Reject the connection or accept the connection? In addition, we've got some view acknowledgement. So view mode, as we know, has 3 states: watch, share and control. So maybe we say it's okay to watch my machine, but if you want to change that state to give you keyboard and mouse access, share or control modes, then again I need to be prompted for feedback. We have smart card support, which is our additional layer of security for those organizations that utilize user validation via smart cards. We have controls over security keys that are used for our connectivity. We can even tie connectivity down to only from certain machines of a specific address, and also we can force encryption to be used at all times. What happens when we remotely disconnect from a PC? Well, we don't want to leave a machine and forget accidentally to log it out, so we can also set that when we disconnect, the machine is automatically locked, logged off, restarted, and more. We can obviously set a password to make sure these configuration settings aren't modified subsequently. We can specify some additional features in our file transfer. So one of the important areas here is we can actually control not only file transfer, but also restrict or limit access to certain areas of our directory structure, another really useful feature. Again, replay files we've touched on before, the ability to create a video recording of a remote control session, either for security or for training purposes. And again, we can choose whether these are going to be recorded by default, where they're going to be stored, and under what user context. Full event logging, we can enable either to an NT event log or to our own unique event log in one or multiple places. And again, this allows us to keep a full history of any connectivity to our machine. We can customize our remote control sessions in terms of our color depth by default, whether we're going to interact with our DVD and 3D support. Our show mode, the reverse of remote control, when we send our show back to the user, are we going to show it to a window? Are we going to, as a user, say we don't want to receive shows anymore, thank you? So again, lots of flexibility there, as well as configuring, again, our audio support. From a client-side point of view, we can disable certain requests. We don't want the client to have access to replay files, request chats, and so on. And we can also, of course, control how our client is presented. So by default, we encourage users to have our client interface that's visible to end users, but depending on the nature of your business, it can be completely hidden, it can be silent, or as we call it, quiet mode, so there's absolutely no indication to the end user that there's a client running, or it can be the opposite, where they have to acknowledge and they receive an audible reminder when a remote control session is actually happening. We can specify lots of information to ensure we have effective help support. So not only can a user request help from their desktop PC, but they can also be sent to a link for information about their tech support department, or even given the details of individual control PCs where they can direct different types of help requests to. And finally, we can also set customizable text. So when somebody connects to you, we can add some key string information that displays on their screen along with a variable of who the user is, different information when they're being viewed, and different customized information in the about box. We even within NetSport have the ability to provide on our client information a customized logo so that you can brand the product to suit your own organization's look and feel. We also have our profile options within the product, and finally support for virtual devices and terminal services or thin client devices. Lots and lots of config options all included within NetSport Manager to ensure that it can be perfectly adapted to suit any kind of technology environment. That wraps up our fairly fast-paced overview of the features and configuration options within NetSport Manager. For further information, please visit netsportmanager.com, where you find lots of supporting resources as well as access to a free 30-day evaluation copy of the product. If you have any questions, then please contact your sales representative, and most importantly of all, thank you for your time today.
If you need to contact us for further information, you can reach us on the website that's going to be in the description. You can also contact us on our live chat service. You can contact us on the YouTube comments. We'd be more than happy to assist you. You can reach us at acs@cyberservices.com, and the contact numbers are +44 for international dial, and that would be 1704 893 447. You could also reach me on my mobile at 07494 027783. If you need to contact us on any further information about webinars or demos, please let us know, and I and one of the team would be very happy to assist you. Thank you. But please note that when you are coming to us with regard to an educational request, please also send in some form of identification, or if you are a member of staff, say the IT administrator, please send in a letter from the head teacher with a manual signature so that we can apply an educational discount. But please be aware that you may have to buy so many licenses in order to get a discount. Thank you, and bye bye.